Good morning. Happy day after Thanksgiving. All right. So, a few things here. First of all, with such an advance and a pullback, of course, is expected. Our internals now are lining up for that to happen. Prices are in an area where sellers are going to show up. It doesn't mean it's going to happen today or Monday. Sometimes they take out the prior high, the greater than 100% retracement concept, sucking the last few. We shall see. But our internals here, sentiment just barely touched that upper band. This is the total put call ratio. And last week or earlier in the week, we talked about the lower highs in the breadth internal. So some stocks, not as strong as what this advance where it began. And the equity put call ratio is already through the upper bands. So we've got the warning shot there. Oh, yeah, there's charts. Sorry about that. A little brain freeze there. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So this is what I was talking about here with the internals here, the breadth making these lower highs. Now, what I've seen over the years is this breadth can hang up here, at this extreme level as prices move up. And one of the reasons why you don't, use this as a reason to consider shorting or that the market can't go higher, especially after a sharp move from one extreme to the other. That power suggests it's going to continue. But now these equity put call ratio is pushed through the upper bands. The total has not, it just touched it last week. So, this one moves a little bit faster, but if we get a little more of advance, this will pop up in there. Anyway, we've got this warning there. And as I said, it doesn't mean it's going to happen today. Most of the time, the day after Thanksgiving, the market holds up pretty darn well, maybe advances a little bit. So just keep that in mind. I wanted to point that out. NVIDIA on terrific earnings. You can see it's been going sideways here for a few months. And maybe this is distribution, right? And I say maybe because, look, down here, it kind of peekabooed under the lows and popped right back up to the highs. And on those spectacular earnings, we got this breakdown. And this is what I was talking about earlier in the week about breakout bar failures, where you get a small consolidation. And I wasn't talking about it in the video. I was talking about it in the broader markets, where you get this little consolidation. You got a breakout bar, green bar, solid green bar. You get an inside bar, and then it breaks the low. Historically, that marks a high point. And of course, with NVIDIA at the top of the range, it makes total sense. And big move up there, wide range bar down. And it's coming off of the lows here. It was, you can see where the cursor was down on that next support there. And it's popping up into, this little resistance area. So, this is a big leader, of course. And now it's gotten tired. That solid green bar NVIDIA catches people, so to speak, thinking higher. Well, sure. I mean, look, trends like this continue until they stop. And I've said this many times, what becomes extended can become more extended. We also say, look to the left. And with this at resistance, something, this kind of a price pattern happening, of course, makes sense. Whereas something at the bottom of the range and still having room to the top of the range, this pattern typically isn't going to happen. But now it has. I've seen it happen where it did have a void. But anyway, it's as I said last week, it's a subtle pattern that kind of catches people off guard because it doesn't suggest it's going to happen. But I pointed out because when I see this pattern where it's consolidating, it's extended, it breaks out in an inside bar, I set an alert under the low. Now, if it keeps going higher, fantastic. And this time it didn't. So suggesting the video is done for now. And SMHs, which, that's a big part of it, that popped up. But of course, this is a more diversified ETF, and you've got AMAT and AMD, and AMD got some positive mention as competition for NVIDIA now, and that still looks good, but it backed off. It's not quite at resistance, but eventually, the sector is going to weaken, and this is a leading sector. And you can see Applied Materials, what happened there. KLAC hasn't broken down yet. And that's a big laggard, which is unusual because it's usually an institutional favorite, but that's a big laggard. So some cracks in the armor out there. Keep that in mind. Internals are lining up. Things look great. It's the end of the year. So most times you're not going to get a major plunge because, these hedge fund managers and mutual fund managers, they don't want to dump things into the end of the year. But we've got the warning shots about what's going on right now, and it keeps us objective. All right. So typical extended, get more extended. What a giant gap. And you're like a big, gap, monster gap. Oh, that's an exhaustion gap. Oh, yeah. And it keeps going. And now it's getting up into the, is up into the top of the trading range. Maybe it gets a little bit further. It's jiggling around here. Not expecting too much today. Maybe there'll be a little rally trying to spike up into 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then most likely it'll be over for the day. Just historically, that's the way it is. But there's a long ways to the 20 and this big unfilled gap. So at some point, we're going to get that correction. SPX gotten tight. Neither strike got hit again last week. These are today. It's awfully close. So as tight as things are, I would suggest relaxing. Who knows? Maybe it just chops back and forth again. But at some point, it's going to maybe make a last attempt. I don't know if that is going to be today. And it's definitely going to move lower. And with the lower strike so close, it's just the reward to risk just isn't worth it. I don't think so. A few other things. Retailing, holding up relatively well. Big focus on this into the end of the year. Yes, we'll take a look at that, Robert. We'll take a look at silver because I'm interested in it as well. I planned on getting to that. But I'm encouraged by this holding up for now, as well as some other things that were beaten up. But KRE maybe that's just flip-flopping around, but holding up relatively well. Maybe setting up a 1, 2, 3, but there's resistance right here. Maybe it's bottoming out. And so what should happen, right? Thinking, okay, the markets have done well. Odds are they're not going to collapse. We got NVIDIA on shaky ground, and Meta looks good, but we need to see some rotation now. So some money coming out of, the tech, and we got to look at interest rates, why are they going to come out of that other than just profit taking, but some rotation into things like maybe regionals, maybe retailing, maybe, some biotechs. So we see these bottoming things and they're just whipping back and forth here. But, things that have been beaten down like this. And can you imagine possibly, solar, green deal, blah, 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 beaten down. A lot of times, as we get into the next year, often the things that have been beaten down haven't done well. they begin to outperform as money roads into that. So, we'll cover that, as we get into next month and looking at those kind of things. And of course, well, maybe not, for just the end, right now, little oversold bounces, the market popped up, but maybe airlines coming down to retest this, which, leads us to looking at the things that pulled the market lower the last times. And so that is here, crude oil, things that we need to look for. Is crude oil, is that going to start bottoming here? So it would appear that it should come down to the bottom of the trading range, but it's stabilizing here. So these are the things to look for. And it's just rattling around. I'm talking about the things to look for maybe into the next week or so if, this begins to stabilize further. Because if crude oil starts to turn up, and if gasoline here, which is rattling around the same way, this starts to turn up, and I've got this alarm up here, and interest rates. I don't know why it's gapping up this morning, what's going on, but it is coming into support. I pointed this out last week. So if all of those begin to stabilize and move up, it's going to rattle the markets. And of course, the dollar, which got shellacked as that came down. And with that wide range bar, it's unfilled gap, it'll look like it could come down here. So those are things that we'll be keeping an eye on. And I want to point out something that when you see patterns, right, of course, they create thoughts. And so one of the thoughts that happened recently, let me just bring this up, the spiders, that was really, was like unusual. It's like, that doesn't happen too often, was these two wide range bars on the weekly chart. And it's like, we look at this and it looks like that. And it's like, this thing just has to go down here. Remember, we were looking at that and it's like, that's got to go down there. And then all of a sudden this V turns and things rip higher. Anyway, and I'm pointing that out because you need to, of course, be open-minded and objective, because what seems so obvious at the time and historically is like, this doesn't get turned around. And it did. So as much as we know or think we know, the unusual can happen. So, this is why people get run over, as far as like, oh, it's never going to hit my stop. Oh, yeah. And something like this happens. So just wanted to point that out. So metals, gold and silver are up here, and gold's at the top of the range. And I mentioned earlier in the week, it's starting to get interesting. What it's going to do here, going to go sideways. But I said silver was looking even better. And it cleared all of these pivots and it's going sideways. Now, granted, the top of the range is up here. So it doesn't have far to go before that, but maybe consider a small position. Maybe it's gonna break out. And with IRX coming down, this is the 3-month, interest rates are coming down. There's going to be speculation about, interest rates are coming down. The Fed's not going to do anything. Maybe, the inflation, maybe they'll have to do, who knows? There's just so many what ifs. But so some money is flowing into gold and silver for whatever reason. And this is a constructive pattern that suggests it can go up. Those are the futures. Here's the ETF. And of course, it gaps, and you see it's up here this morning, but it's just rattling around there. So it looks like it's going to go higher. I don't know about how much higher, since it's got this congestion over there, but it is shaping up to look like it's going to go higher. Bitcoin, it's got room to go. It's just been hanging here after getting a little extended and whippy, and it's just hanging in there. And it's at this little minor resistance area, but it's not giving anything back. I've got this alert down here, which hasn't been tagged. I'm going to move it up a little bit. So far, this looks good. We'll see. Look at interest rates, transports. Let's look at the transports. That's TBT anyway. That's 20-year. We need TYT. So that looks good. There's many things that look decent, like this rotation could occur. I mentioned the regionals and the retailers. The transports have moved up. So there's all these positives in light of like looking for some kind of corrective action to occur, which will happen. And then, as I showed you, the internals being where they're at. All right. Dan is MIA. He didn't say he wasn't going to be here. I'm hoping everything's okay, because usually he's going to make me know, what's happening there. He went to New Orleans, for holiday, and hopefully he didn't get into something too exciting. We'll find out. So he usually covers our open positions, and weekly options trader has a bull put credit spread on MCK. And this was strikes 447. No, that's not right. Still on IYT. MCK. $47. This is expiring in December. Where's he got the stop? 447 is the stop. I'm not loving this at all. The way this came down. I sort of thought he would have had something down here. Anyway, we'll see what happens. SMH got a bear call credit spread, which should be just fine. 165 stop, 165.52 stop, 166 is the lowest strike. That looks fine. And let's see the advisory letter. I haven't even looked at gappers today, but I will. It's gapping up big or not, because he usually does that. This looks good. This is a utility, and nice bottoming tail, red bar that reversed. Where is it? It's up a little bit. Looks fine. AI was a speculative kind of thing, well, you know what happened with AI, and it's holding up relatively well here as the turmoil dissipates. It was an initial small position as this was bottoming out. So we'll see if that turns out that it gets turned around with its CEO coming back. BLTR. Rattling around there. Long from 135.59. So breakout, stop one, nothing, 128 stops down here. This is fine. It's not doing anything. DR. Gapping up a little bit. That looks fine. Got to bring the stop definitely around there. Stop 1270. Oh, all right, made that pretty tight. That looks okay. Olex. Doing anything. Stop 71.30. That's fine. Not doing anything. I don't know, maybe things just going to chop around here today. See what the future's doing here. Not much of anything. This one, bottoming pattern. Bottoming pattern. Come here and stop. Okay, this is one he found with big premium sold naked puts at 140. Middle of December. That looks fine so far. X, RXO. Gap up and hopefully go. Long stock, 19. It's fine. Nothing moving, not moving here. SPOT. Beautiful, nice advancer. Not doing much of anything here. Pre-market. BZ. Looks great. Not doing much of anything. Sage. There's another long stock. This looks kind of like a mess of doing nothingness. You don't know some of these, but with the market being where it is, these bottoming stocks like this, as the market advances, they tend to make really decent moves, and you just take your money. But when they falter like this, and the market's reached a destination, they become really questionable. And I don't like that gap down. Where's he got the stop on this? 458. It's not moving anything, but okay. And lastly, a lot of bottoming patterns. So as things get extended, of course, we look at these bottoming patterns and see if they can catch up. You're welcome, Robert. Yeah, not a bad idea to sit on your hands today. Boy, what's gapping big? FOLD, and I haven't checked news on anything. It's crappy pattern, gapping therapeutics, not interested in that. GOGL, Golden Ocean Group, gapping up a little bit more. MARA. What's this? Not bad. This could be okay for a day trade. I'll jot it down. Bottoming. It closed well on Friday. This is pre-market. You can see how I gray this a little bit here, what's chopping around pre-market. It was a little higher and coming in. So not bad. This is something maybe you can advance a little bit. Let me just sort these. I can show you what I'm looking at, but anyway, it's just a gap list. I just sorted what has the most volume now. PMI data today. Yeah, economic news. Yeah, 8:30, there was personal income. So that's already out. Not a big deal. Initial jobless claim, that's a 30th. What am I looking at? Today is the 24th. We're ahead of things here. 24th, PMI flash at 9:45. Yeah, keep it in mind. Could rattle things at 9:45. Most people are away. So, their stops are in, things are on automatic, or some clerk is watching. So, keep that in mind. You're in sleepy mode. Gaps. Fold. GPS. That had a hell of a move, right? For a retailer. Gap stores, that had a heck of a move, but not moving much today. I mean, some of these, they say percentage gaps. I don't really see much happening. That's had a big advance already. Biotech, stay away from that. Yes, there's really not much out here that looks interesting yet. It's not bad. I don't know why it seems like I don't see it moving much here. I guess that's up a little bit. Um, XRX. Nothingness. Uh, Sort by volume. PLTR. Hands alive. All right. Yeah, so pattern like this, maybe it's going to come down a little bit, make the turn next week. Nothing to do here, greater than 100% retracement. It's not a short, it's not a long, it's not ready for anything. P. I think there was some news on this that I saw. Not doing much. I think there was a news on this in the Wall Street Journal, some article anyway. I didn't read the whole thing, but looks like this is in play. And EMI, EMI. Let's look at this. Why am I looking at this? Because gap below a green wide range bar, which this data doesn't tell me it's doing that. Gaps above a red bar. Let's take a look. Not a big enough red bar. Not interested. IAC. Well, this is part of the scans. Let's see, what does this company do? Internet information content. Not bad for a little, whatever you call it, flag, pendant. It's going sideways after a run up. So let's jot it down. We'll see if it can make a move. IAC above that little consolidation there. I like the fact that it's a little bit of a higher priced stock. So maybe above this area could have a little move. UMH slop. And it's got too much slop over here to really be interested in. AH. No, I'm not interested. CNNE. I just don't like these patterns, but what can I do? Go through do the factory work. POWI. Well, that one's not too bad because it was up here before, gapping to the top of the range, but it's one that look, consolidation at this pivot. And it's opening up here. Things are opening. So set an alert up here. POWI. So maybe it recovers. It's really not moving much. Let's just, before I close up here, close the social media, just take a look here. No futures, dropping here, but inside day doing nothing. Could easily whip back in the other direction. S&Ps, my little alert's going off there. It's just flip-flopping around inside day. Nothing. And the Russell, well, maybe it'll get going here. But so far, there's a lot of chopping back and forth, and we'll see how they all shape up. So I'm going to sign off on the social media. Those out there, have a great weekend. Nice little pop here. We get to the top of the trading range, and we will be back on Monday. All right, take care.
Hey, good morning, the sound check. I had having trouble with my mic today, so this is my laptop speaker. So I'll fiddle with it here a little more later. Greg, I see your mouse moving. Are you talking?